everyone, welcome back to another commentary. I'm Captain Logan.
I'm Eric.
And Eric is back on the channel again. Welcome, Eric.
I am.
How you doing, man? We are finally getting back to The Matrix.
Yes.
We did the first one several months ago, and always intended to do the rest of the movies. And I sent Eric a message one day and said, hey, when do you want to do Reloaded? And he went, Animatrix is next. And I was like, really, we're doing the Animatrix? He's like, well, yeah, because it counts.
It does.
And it's good.
Kind of.
And yeah,
sort
of, kind of.
I would also...
So I was like, sure, okay, we'll do that. So we'll see if we have anything to say about this movie, but we are going to watch this movie and talk with you guys about it.
So I haven't watched it since I was a teenager.
Yeah, and you didn't watch it in preparation for this.
I did not.
I did.
But I
did go back. I still don't know how much I have to say about it, but I did go back and look at it again recently.
Because like when you were watching it, we were talking back and forth, and I was like, oh yeah, and I like this and that, and like, but I haven't seen this in at least a decade. But I have some things to say about it.
I had not seen it since it came out. And I remembered being surprised by how much I liked it. Because you got to remember what I was like in 03 versus where I'm at now. I've actually watched some anime since this, mostly because of you. And I was so green with anime. I wasn't used to... And this is a pretty Americanized anime sort of project, of course. I mean, like, there are certainly... Some of these shorts feel more like, you know, real anime than other shorts. And more like, a Japanese creator with those sensibilities made this than some of the others, certainly. And, of course, the Wachowskis wrote half of these. And then the rest of them were written by other people. They didn't direct any of them, but they wrote half of them.
Are all of the writers American?
I don't actually know that.
Because, like, with Gotham Knights, it's all the writers are all people on our side of the pond.
Yeah. I don't think so. I would have to look that up, though. I think some of them weren't, but I'm actually...
we can see as the credits come up.
I'm actually not sure. One of the ones, of course, that the Wachowskis did was Final Flight of... No, not Final Flight. Actually, they may have written that, too. But
they have to have written that one.
But I would figure, yeah. But the one... and, of course, I don't know a ton about this, but the two-part... story about how the Matrix was created in the first place, or the background that leads us there. That's them, and that's based on their comics.
Oh, interesting.
They did that in comics first.
I remember looking through... I remember Barnes & Noble had like a hardcover of like the Matrix comics.
And those are hard to find now? Or maybe they've re-released them finally.
I remember looking through them and just being like, this doesn't look like anything I would want to read.
Yeah.
Like, they're very indie sensibilities, like, artistically, and like...
I'm still curious to read them, though, just because there's not new Matrix content, and I love this universe, and it's really hard not to want to find... And I never did read those. They were online comics originally, and they were available on a Matrix website for the longest time, and that site's no longer around, so now you have to buy them in trade if you want to read them.
Interesting. I'm sure you can find them.
They're on Amazon. I'm not sure how much they are.
No, I just mean I'm sure you can find them online somewhere.
Well, I looked and I couldn't find them that way.
Interesting.
Yeah, I tried to find them in a digital format in any way whatsoever, and I could not find them. That's kind of what I meant when I said they're hard to find. Like, I don't know how much the trades are if you get your hands on them, but I don't think they're currently in... I know they're supposed to be re-released, but I don't know if that's happened yet.
Probably
maybe that actually has happened already. I'm not sure, but... I think technically they're supposed to be canon.
Okay. Well, I think
technically everything is supposed to be canon.
Because online is supposed to be canon, and
or the Matrix is supposed to be canon.
I guess Path of Neo is the only thing that isn't.
Because everything in that, because all the added stuff doesn't add that much. Like
it's all intentionally. This is video game content. This is
right.
Like famously the ending.
Yeah. But anyway, so let's go ahead and watch this. If you haven't seen this before, it's a bunch of vignettes all set in the Matrix universe. This is currently available on HBO Max, which is where we're going to be watching it. I assume the Matrix movies will eventually also all go on HBO Max because, of course, those are owned by Warner Brothers, but they have been on Netflix recently. I don't know if they are right now. So I'm assuming the contracts are still murky, or not murky, but are still tied up with that. But it's weird because Animatrix is the only Matrix thing currently on HBO Max, but surely it will get them eventually. So get ready to press play when I say now. Get it to timestamp 0, however you're planning on watching it, and let's go ahead and get started. Here we go. Everybody knows the image we're going to see right away. Oh, and watching this on HBO Max, There's not anything before the Matrix code. I don't know if on the DVD there is. So if you're watching the DVD and there's any like licensing whatever in front of that, just skip past that and get to the Matrix code. So it wouldn't be timestamp 0 in that case. But I haven't looked at this in DVD in a while, so I'm not sure. I actually watched it that way a couple months ago
in preparation
when we were going to do this, and then we didn't have time to finally get together and do it. So until just now. So I don't remember. But anyway, so here we go. Everybody, please press play right now. But yeah, I just wanted to watch it this way this time because people would be able to sync with us better, because I assume most people will watch it this way. This shouldn't have gone right to Second Renaissance.
No, that's...
Did they put this in a different order on HBO Max?
Because the first one is
Final Flight of the Osiris.
Yes.
But
see, I haven't seen it since I was a teenager, but I remember that.
Wow, but we have an hour and 40-minute timestamp here, so and that has got to be the length of this movie.
Is it possible that, like, is the Animatrix in that Ultimate box set you have?
It is.
Is it possible they reordered it on that box set?
I don't know.
Because did you watch it from the box set when you watched it?
No, I didn't. I watched my other copy.
I wonder if it's reordered.
Yeah, me too. Man. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and watch it this way.
Yeah,
and just see what the order is.
So don't bring out your DVD if you have your DVD.
Yeah, don't do that at all. Okay, that's going to be weird, and I feel bad for people that aren't watching this in HBO Max, but I would figure more people would have access to that than the DVD, don't you think? We should probably just keep the recording going.
Yes, I agree.
It's going to be weird if Final Flight is missing.
I doubt it.
I wouldn't know why they would... I don't know why they would do that.
Is it Final Flight and then the two-parter?
I thought there was even one
I thought so, too.
Yeah.
Because the way I remember it, and I could be wrong, is I remember Final Flight, then the weird one with the kids playing with the...
That's way later, though.
Is it way later?
Yes.
I remember it being earlier.
That one's in the middle or toward the end.
Okay.
I don't actually remember what the second one was. It may be this. Okay, so something to mention is, I think... half of these, and I don't remember which ones, but I'm pretty sure these two were the Second Renaissance, and this was a two-parter. So these will each be like 15 minutes apiece, I think. I forget. They were all posted online before the DVD came out. So some of these you could actually go on and watch.
I don't remember if I did that or not.
I definitely did not. I watched these all as a movie.
I don't think I did. I remember this being really weird when it came out because you didn't do things like this, and we have tried since then. It's never... Halo Legends is probably the closest we've ever come to making this work again, but like Gotham Knights is not good.
No, and of course we've done a commentary on that and we didn't like it.
We did a couple, like we did like Van Helsing the London Assignment, which was not a vignette, but it was like an anime short that took place before the movie.
This 3D 2D integration is awesome.
Yeah,
where it goes up the steps and that's all 2D, or that's all 3D, but then it's 2D behind it. It's really well integrated. I wish the direct-to-video DC movies had taken more of their cues from this.
Yeah. I remember not liking this and thinking that it does not line up with what we're told about the rise of the machines.
Yeah. Last time I saw it, I kind of felt like there was some of that too, but in a vacuum, it's interesting.
Yes. I also remember being scandalized because there are nude boobs in this.
That's true.
I distinctly remember that from when I was like, oh, this is adult.
I'm not supposed to be watching this. Yeah, it's visceral, it's graphic. What we're looking at right now is very graphic.
Yeah, this is brain.
That's somebody's brain and tongue coming out at us.
Well, and we are still... We're past it, but it still has that reputation of the 80s and 90s animes that were like hyper-violent, hyper-sexual.
Yes.
Like, anime still has that reputation here. It has not been completely taken over by like Naruto and Pokemon, both as a public image and the industry itself to some degree.
And those sensibilities, of course, make their way into the live-action Matrix movies.
Yes.
So
yes.
This is in line with those, at least in that way. Tonally, none of these 8 vignettes feels exactly like those movies. Like, Rise of the Osiris gets the closest because... or Final Flight of the Osiris gets closest because it is a 3D animated thing that's trying to look as realistic as it can.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got that kind of PS2 thing.
Well, and I think whoever does that, I think is the one who did the Final Fantasy VII movie, Advent Children, which had come out just a little bit before that or right after it. And I remember...
It looks a lot like that.
Yes.
That makes a lot of sense, because I always thought the animation looked really similar. I have seen that movie.
There's the nudity.
Yep, right.
Really kind of gratuitous. Not necessary there.
I will make the argument that, and maybe this is stretching, it's maybe not necessary.
It's okay there.
And
when they actually rip it off.
And I could call it, and I can see why you'd call it gratuitous, but I guess what I like about it is that at first, in being anatomically correct, it looks like they're
attacking a woman.
They're attacking an actual woman. And they know that it's not, so it's easy for them to do that, even though, like, it feels more graphic, and it feels like...
Why you need clothes, you're a robot.
You're watching, but also, like, it humanizes her for the audience. Mm-hmm. Because you're like, oh god, what's happening to her right now is horrible. Mm-hmm. And if you saw the, like, Terminator face first...
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
So, that's how I would take up for the nudity if I had to take up for it.
Well, I'm never gonna play about nudity. I just thought that was. I was like, oh, it is, because I remember, like, even when I was younger, being like, this feels weird and out of place, and like, I didn't have that with like Spawn the animated series, which is absolutely gratuitous. But like, I remember being like, why is there nudity here? And there's not nudity anywhere else in the film. I think The Matrix has nudity, but I don't think of them as.
I don't know if it ever does, actually. Like, straight up
the sex scene with Trandy?
We don't actually see anything. No.
Okay.
Then, it gets as close as it can, but that never happens.
Okay, then that strengthens this. I think of the Matrix as not nudity films.
Real quick, the shot we were just looking at with all the bodies stacked on top of each other in the big pile, there is a scene, and I'm not saying that this necessarily influenced this game, it probably didn't, but I'm having flashbacks to Detroit Become Human. There's a bit like that in that game where you actually have to walk through a graveyard of android bodies like that. And actually, you are one at one point.
You know, a lot of the imagery in this, and I'm wondering if maybe the whole thing will be like this, a lot of the imagery in this is a lot more cyberpunk than The Matrix actually looks.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Like, maybe it's just in this one, and it would make sense because it's a more... This is part of civilization before civilization falls, so that would make sense for cyberpunk. Or to have a more cyberpunk aesthetic.
I wonder if, in reordering this, if this is like, you know, an intentional choice and we didn't just take one out. We'll have to see.
I hope we didn't take the
Me too.
Flight of the Osiris out, but I feel like Flight of the Osiris was put first because like that technology was real hot at the time. Like, I remember when the trailer for Advent Children came out, and I was like, why don't we make CG movies like this? Like, why are we doing this, like, stupid, like, Pixar, everything looks cartoony thing? Like, why don't we try to do it like this? Now when I go back and look at those, I'm like, this does not.
You're like, that
doesn't look great. It didn't age well, whereas I can still watch The Incredibles. But it was also tying into the next movie. Like that was the big one that ties into Reloaded.
Exactly.
And so,
it's not the only one that informs Reloaded, but it informs it the most.
Yes.
Because that ship is brought up in that. Mm-hmm. Like, all the people that die in order to get that information to Zion.
There's only two major ones, right?
There's that one, and then there's the one with the kid.
Yeah.
Which, when we get to that, we'll have to talk about, because I don't think it actually makes a lot of sense.
I don't either. I've never thought it did. Like, and
I don't understand the ending of that.
I saw this before I watched
I will say, I do love how stylized this looks. Mm-hmm. I love the robots with the cyber... or not cyberpunk, with the kind of steampunk suits.
Mm-hmm.
When they come in and try to address the United Nations and get taken out, like they try to make the robot nation a nation, recognized by the rest of the world. One thing I do really like about this, whether or not it actually lines up really well with the rest of the Matrix continuity, and I forget what exact qualms I had with that, but there is some of that.
I also remember
it's been a couple months now.
Yeah,
but I wish I had time to watch it again today, and I just didn't. But despite any of that, I like that we humanize the robots before they become, like, very, very inhuman. Like, we make... It's not that they don't make any mistakes, but we make a lot of the mistakes that get us to this. Like, a lot of this is human hubris. I guess it's not 15 minutes apiece. I guess it's, like, 10. It's like, yeah, because that was only like 9 minutes before we get to part 2 of the Second Renaissance, and this really is like one lengthy vignette.
I remember being confused when I was younger. Like, why is this 2 parts? I assume it's 2 animation.
It was 2 parts. I don't think it is. No, I think it was because they couldn't do more than 10 minutes of video on the internet, and they posted, or they decided not to
put it as one on the DVD.
I might have done that too. I'm not sure why they did that. Although it is kind of fun because it makes it feel more like a what am I trying to say? Like a biography kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. I don't like her. It doesn't. She doesn't get the aesthetic of the Matrix at all.
No, she really doesn't.
Like, I don't know what I'm looking at when I look at that.
I meant documentary. It's like, I mean, I know these are too short for this, but it's got that like multi-part documentary thing, you know, where it's like, here's the first half of this period of time, and here's the second half of this period.
Well, and going through the Matrix movies, this is probably a good time to bring up the fact that I want to say we know, but the Wachowskis are very private. And so a lot of things I never know if they're true or if they're just rumors. But what I have heard is Reloaded is not the movie they were going to make. They wanted to make this movie.
Yes.
They wanted to make the origin of it. And then they would come back and do a third movie that was like the conclusion of the Neo story. And they were told by the studio, you are not going to make a sequel Matrix movie, or I guess a prequel, but you will not make the next Matrix movie without Keanu Reeves and Lawrence Fishburne. Yeah. And apparently Agent Smith. So this is apparently what they really wanted to do as the second Matrix. So I think that would have been interesting. I like non-linear releases for complete stories like Star Wars. Like, I like starting with Episode 4. I've always liked that kind of thing. I like coming in where you've missed something. There's no trilogy that exists. There's no film trilogy that exists where you tell a story, then you go backwards and tell the origin story, and then you come back. Like, I like that structurally, how unique
and the reason you would do that,
it was to inform whatever comes next.
Would be to say, now you really do need... Yeah, it's not linear storytelling. Now you really do need this background that we only hint at in The Matrix because Morpheus just doesn't know that much. He doesn't even know what year they're in.
Whatever he knows, he got from other people.
We know we scorched the sky, that's all we know. This tells us how and why we scorched the sky. We're actually seeing this right now. They say, well, the sun is the power source of the machines. So if we cut them off from that... Like, Morpheus doesn't even know that much. He just... I don't think.
I thought
or maybe that does come up. I forget.
He knows.
I don't remember. I remember thinking that was clever in this, but maybe not.
I thought it was, we don't know why this is, but we know that it was us that took the sun. But I could be wrong. You watch these movies far more than I do.
Yeah. Well, we say we don't know who started the war, but we know that we're the ones that scorched the sky.
Yeah, and I think he establishes solar power at that point.
He does, but I don't think he makes the connection necessarily.
Okay.
That the reason we scorched the sky was to cut them off from their power source. You could certainly imply that. I mean, infer that, but...
I also like the idea that you could have...
A lot of this is so, like, unnecessarily crazy stylized, but, like, it's fun. I just don't know how much I buy it being in exactly the same universe, you know what I mean? Like, you almost have to imagine the Matrix as a different thing.
Well, the upside of this is...
You know, we got, like, robotic horses and stuff.
It is introduced by...
Okay, I mean, that's just the start of a Squiddy, though. So...
Yeah. Well, but this is introduced by that, woman, whatever you want to call her,
the narrator lady?
Yeah. So this could be artistic representation. This is a story being told. So it doesn't have to literally line up with...
Good point. Because, like, nobody really knows what happened. We can't... Yeah. Although... The only problem I have with that is that she's part of the machines, and they would all have that in their collective memory, so they could show it to us exactly the way it happened.
You're right. Well, and that's that's the thing that I was going to bring up about...
If this is coming from a human perspective, I like that idea, but I don't know about it.
Yeah, you might be right. But the other thing that I like about the idea of doing a prequel second is, I think there is a thing with prequels that a lot of people try, but can never convey to the audience well enough that it makes sense, which is the difference between history and reality.
Yes.
I feel like you could do a prequel Matrix movie that goes back like this, and has things that contradict the first movie intentionally.
Yes.
They have their history wrong.
And then maybe somebody in the third movie discovers a thing that we
Yes.
know already.
Yes.
I mean, that could get irritating where they're catching up, but it doesn't have to. You can make that work. Well, that's gruesome. Or were the maggots necessary? Do we need the maggots?
And they were instant. They were just right there. They were
Yeah,
ready.
I don't think they would just show up like that. Yeah.
But I think a lot of people try that with prequels, and I don't think anyone... I think it always feels like continuity errors. I don't think anyone ever conveys well history versus
because,
reality.
And a lot of it is, a lot of the time it feels lazy and you don't trust it if it was intentional, and I think most of the time it's not intentional. Where it's like, we just weren't trying that hard, or we retconned a thing to make this work in the past, or we did like a really vague retcon where it's like, well, maybe that... Like,
I mean, the poster boy is George Lucas.
Maybe Anakin Skywalker could have made C-3PO, but that's kind of dumb. Do I really buy that?
Well, or
that sort of thing.
Or the thing that I go to is the... we are told explicitly that Yoda trained Obi-Wan, and then we retcon that with, well, Yoda trains all of the young Padawans, but he wasn't his master.
And that's a universe where you could maybe get away with some of those inconsistencies like you're talking about, if at least with things that people tell us that just turn out not to be accurate. Not things that we actually literally see happen.
Yes.
That's a famous painting. Not necessarily that there is, or a famous photograph, I should say, that is then recreated during 9/11. And then we do it here.
Ooh, I like that. That looks like a cover of Heavy Metal.
Yes. Actually, there's a lot of kind of
there
metal influences here. And there's all kinds of symbolism that comes from a million different things in this.
I wonder if Heavy Metal did well in the animated film Heavy Metal, not the magazine which I was referring. I wonder if that did well in Japan.
Good question. I love the idea of the machine signing with a barcode.
Yeah, that's super cool.
I think that's so cool. I was making some kind of a point again. Oh, Star Wars is a good place to do that because people don't even believe the Jedi existed. So yeah, you totally could have done that.
I've always wanted to do that, or at the very least, I've always wanted to see somebody do it well. I think there's something really cool to be done with. You think you know what happened, but you don't.
Yeah,
and this is kind of like that. Like, and I think my reaction as a teenager was, this is darker than I thought it was going to be. This is bleaker than I thought it was going to be, and I feel like some of the facts don't line up. I'm wondering if maybe some of the facts don't line up because
it's not
the narrative
the facts.
Is
it's we're like, it's just the characters getting things wrong because they don't know.
Yes,
maybe that's what it is. The end of this is really sad and kind of messed up.
I think in some ways, the Animatrix is a little bit more... And maybe it's just because it's the animation thing, and you can get away with more in animation. But, like, I feel like this is a little bit bleaker and grimier than the actual movies.
It is.
And I think when I was younger...
It's easier to do that because it's not aimed at, it's not trying to be as accessible. It's not going to a mainstream audience, yeah.
This looks great.
And this is one of those things, of course, that this goes without saying, but of course, you wouldn't have wanted to start the Matrix in this place. This needs to be a reveal. You need to live in the Matrix and then scale the camera back and find out, obviously in that first movie, we're all being used as batteries and the Matrix is not real and we're slaves, and then maybe go to something like this, like you're saying, and go, okay, here's now how we got to that place. What I would have loved about that being the second movie is you get it from the machine's perspective. Mm-hmm. So you get to the end of the first movie and Neo says it's your move, and then the very next thing we get to see is, okay, how do the machines feel about all this?
Yeah.
Maybe it wouldn't even have to be go back in time to... Oh, now we get to program. I don't know if we're going to see Osiris. Or wouldn't it be really weird if it was at the end?
Well, and it would make sense at the end, too, if it leads directly into the next one. Like, I think it makes as much sense at the end as it does at the beginning.
Yeah.
Because you put it at the beginning because you're really excited because that's the... this is...
this may be my favorite one.
This is directed by Yoshiaki Kawajiri, who is my favorite anime director.
Oh!
He did Wicked City, and Demon City Shinjuku, and Ninja Scroll.
It's definitely my favorite for aesthetic, but I think it's my favorite story, too. It's cool.
And if you look at
Now, I think the guy that set this whole program up is a jerk face at the end, but we'll talk about it.
If you look at... Because Kawajiri has a very distinct style that evolves a little bit throughout his tenure. If you look at Vampire & Deep Bloodlust, and then the last movie that he makes is a Highlander anime movie, which is okay. Those two look a lot like this.
Man, the Code Blood is the coolest idea.
It is. It is. It's really cool.
God, it's so cool.
But Kawajiri is an amazing visualist. And pretty interesting character designer, too.
I want to talk for a second about the music in these, because the one consistent thing throughout all of these... I mean, we have a lot of...
I love the background.
Yeah, it's awesome. We have a lot of different kinds of score in this, but I think every single one of these, including the history one we just watched, and I mean, we're hearing it right now, is it constantly goes to the kinds of orchestral stings that we had in the movies, and it also, very often, I think maybe all 8 of these do this, but maybe not, maybe just some of them do it, it also goes to a lot of the kind of techno that you had in those movies, and I think it's doing that to remind you in places where it doesn't feel as much like the Matrix that you're watching a Matrix thing. I think it's the thing that's supposed to hold the aesthetic together when it doesn't really look and feel like a Matrix thing. And oddly, there are places where that takes me out, where I'm like, this doesn't look anything like the thing that it sounds like right now. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that it's always the right choice. Mm-hmm. I think it's really good here where we just saw it.
Yeah.
I think it makes sense there. But there are places, like, I don't know about the techno stuff in... the history part. Mm-hmm. I don't know that I would have done that.
Is it all...
I also think that's partly to make that not as relentless. Where, like, what you're looking at is, like, carnage and horrifying, and it's offset by that techno thing.
Is it all Matrix score, or is it original music as well?
I think it might be both.
Okay, because I was going to say, if there's not any... real original score, it might just be a cost-saving measure.
Well, so I know
that ends up working out in some places and not in other places.
In this, but what I'm wondering is if when it sounds like The Matrix, any of that is actually newly orchestrated, or if all of that is just ripping straight out of the movies. I'm sure a lot of it is.
It's really interesting how this looks a lot like Kawajiri's other stuff, but it's a little bit softer. Like, I don't know, the character designs aren't as hard as they are in some. I don't know. Her in particular, I'm like, oh man, like, she's just a great design that looks like Kawajiri's design, but not the way she would traditionally be done in his work. I don't know. I'm really fascinated by her character design. I think it looks cool.
Well, and what I love about this one is it's the visual design of this is like this for a purpose. Mm-hmm. It isn't... I mean, I realize the thing is called the Animatrix, but it's not like this just to look like an anime. It's because they're doing a program that's in feudal Japan.
Mm-hmm. Also, we talked about this in the commentary for the first one, but I think a huge mistake with the sequels is to not have the load room. And this is utilizing the load room, like, wonderfully.
Yes.
Like, it's... I feel like it's almost adding to my point of... The load room is iconic for the Matrix. It's a mistake not to have that in the sequels.
Yeah, that's a really good point. No, I forgot all about that. Until you mentioned it when we did that commentary, that they don't use it again, do they?
No, and I think it's so, like, visually tied. Like, it is an iconic image from that first movie, and it's not in the sequels, but it's here, and being used really well. And because we did this kind of...
God, those camera moves. That's so cool.
We did this kind of not literal not scene transitions, but like we're like Morpheus and Neo are standing on something, and then it zooms in underneath of them, like not existing in a literal space.
Yeah, they don't go there. The location comes to them,
and we're doing that a lot here, and we're using it really well.
Now, you could make the argument in the sequels, where exactly would you have had that? Like, we go to the Matrix, and we're in the real world, and where would there be places to do this kind of thing? Because the loading room is really mostly just about simulation.
Right. But I feel like you could do it with a lot. I don't know. I could also argue that there's a bunch of stuff in those movies that why would you put those?
No, I agree with that. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm trying to remember how the gun thing is handled in that third act, because I feel like we get the loading room for them to get all the guns.
In which one?
In the first one.
Yes.
Don't they do that?
Yes, we walk in
and they just take them from the... How does that even work?
Well,
now that I'm thinking about that.
I think it's a space between your mind in the Matrix, so you bring the guns in from the loading room.
Well, in that case, they should have done it a lot more. Yeah, you're totally right about that. But yeah, here it's a simulation, just like...
Or they could have like a thing where like the captains of the ship meet in the loading room and prepare strategy, because they can't all go back to Zion.
Everything about this vignette is really well thought out, and everything means something. I love that this guy's name is Duo. That's really cool, especially because it turns out to not be what we thought it was. Man, we're just not even having enough time to talk about some of this stuff. Like, we're already to the big reveal. So she thinks... So she's led to believe that Duo wants to do the same thing Cypher did, and leave the real world and go back to the Matrix and get replugged back in. And he's trying to get her to come with him. And the whole thing is just a test, we find out here at the end. And he turns out to be a big jerk face for doing this to her. And, like, you sort of understand why he does it, but... it's also very satisfying when she punches him out like that. And I love that his name is Duo, because that adds to your thinking that really is actually happening. And then, because like Cypher kind of also meant something. And then you get to this, and he's duplicitous because he has to be, but not because he's actually a turncoat.
This looks gorgeous.
Yeah.
And I think... I love the rundown look of that first Matrix. I think they lose a little bit in the second one. That very much fits in the... Like, that's what ships look like in the first Matrix.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And then the second Matrix, you find out, no, it's just a Nebuchadnezzar. Every other ship is mounted with guns and looks much sleeker.
And, of course, she doesn't...
Maybe not that much sleeker.
Or, excuse me, those characters at the end there, of course, are still in the same anime style, but it's all in shadow and really understated, but, like, they're making a big deal out of you're looking at, like, Japanese animation and the feudal Japan stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, and like her hair's not as exaggerated, and like there's some subtle differences in the character models as well. Coming into the real world.
All that samurai stuff and all that storyboarding, it's very Samurai Jack.
Yes, I was thinking some Samurai Jack too.
I am not a big fan of the aesthetic of this one. Everything's like weirdly, and I could make suggestions for why we're doing this thematically, but like everything's so exaggerated and like kind of ugly faces. And
I really dig it.
Really? Okay.
Yes, I've also watched things in this style. There's an amazing anime movie called Redline that comes out.
I know I'm out of my depth on
in
this
like
stuff.
2009, 2010, something like that. And it's... Redline is important because it's hand-drawn, and we don't do that anymore. And it took like 7 years to make or whatever. But Redline looks a lot like this.
Wow.
And it's super... I actually really dig this kind of stuff.
Okay.
I remember this being my favorite story, or the one that like sat with me like the most. Like when you were watching this, or right after you watched this, we were talking about it over text. Again, like I haven't seen this in 10 years, but like I was like the Runner one is my favorite.
This guy is a really compelling protagonist. I like him a lot. Like, you want him to succeed.
I also love this as a way to get out of the Matrix.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that ties a couple of these vignettes together. This and the one with the kid both play with the idea of somebody who can bring themselves out of the Matrix and into the real world. Which was not a sense... Which you didn't really know for sure if you could do that in the first movie.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you needed somebody else to introduce the idea of the Matrix to you, where like you would have that, like you talked about in that commentary, you'd have this vague sense that something is wrong with the world,
mm-hmm.
and people would, online talk about the Matrix, what is the Matrix, but you wouldn't have a full realization, you wouldn't be fully self-aware about it. And in this, you have characters who become subconsciously aware of it, where they start to tap into the potential to break the laws of physics. And then eventually that allows them to leave. And so the very thing that lets this guy, do the impossible and, like, run on a busted leg and run, faster than he should be able to and beat his time is the reason that ultimately he comes out of the Matrix.
Mm-hmm.
The big kind of question I had watching this last time was... once he's...
If no one's there when you wake up, what happens?
Well, yeah, I had that question. But
you just sit in goo?
Yeah, well, that was that was it. So it was. Why does it matter to the machines if he wakes up?
Because his body's still plugged in.
A bigger problem if he goes back in. Like, instead of the agents working so hard to make sure he doesn't come out of it, why don't they just send Squiddies to his pod so that when he does, they just kill him? Like, they could just grow more humans. Why is it that big of a deal if he lives or dies? And why is it that big of a deal if he knows? Because you just kill him when he wakes up.
You know, that's not an image we really...
It only becomes a problem when you plug him back in, which they do. And they try to... I think they try to erase his memory or something, where he doesn't fully remember when he comes back in, but just get rid of... You don't need him. He's one battery out of billions. I don't get it.
That's also an iconic image for the Matrix that's used in this, that we don't revisit in the sequels. We don't revisit the battery.
We never go back to the batteries, yeah. And you'd think you'd have, like, a big moment where we either, like,
people start waking up,
it, or a bunch of people wake up, or, yeah.
Yeah, you would think that the end of 3 is people sitting up in the pods.
That's why that movie's so disappointing, because there's just all these missed opportunities, where you can think of, like... I think that's the sign of a really bad sequel, when you imagine all the iconography, all the, iconic imagery that it never gives you.
Mm-hmm.
And if it was doing its job, it might have new ones that would make you forget about the things that you would think would be iconic. So not saying that, like, if you go, oh, this would have been a great image and it's not there, it's a bad movie. Now, it's a bad movie, and it's made worse by the fact that there's all these things you could have brought to it.
Yeah. I also think this visual aesthetic lends itself really well to a lot of the Matrix imagery, like the agents.
That's a good... But you know what? I think maybe it's just the main guy and the big hands that I'm feeling funky about. Like, I love what the agents look like, and I love that shot with on the green with all that. Like, that's awesome. Yeah.
Now, the one with the kids discovering the anomaly, I remember as a kid hating, and I'm interested to know what I'll think about it when I get to it now.
Yeah.
Because I'd never seen anime like that, and I've now seen some anime that looks like that, so I'm wondering if I'll be more okay with it. But I remember getting that, like, what is this? This doesn't look like the Matrix or anime.
I'm starting to think that we're not going to actually see Final Flight of the Osiris.
That would be weird.
Because I don't remember what the actual what the actual runtime for this movie was.
But I also don't remember what the order is, and I'm wondering if this is all out of order just in general from what the original DVD release was. But I don't...
Yeah, because I thought this one was a little bit later. But I'm also possibly thinking that because it used to be longer, with that other movie there. But,
the last one is the CGI robot thing, right? Is that the last one?
Yes, which is really long, and feels long, and I don't always know what I'm looking at.
And I remember not liking that one at all.
It feels like doing a Matrix version of Fantasia to me. Of, like, the end of Fantasia. Where it's just a whole bunch of imagery, and it's kind of slow. I don't really know what's
And I also just don't think that story fits in the Matrix world. Like, I don't believe that, like... I don't know, people would find, like, a broken machine and, like... Like, you don't get Iron Giant in the Matrix. But...
I don't know. I like the idea that it could maybe happen just because you never get this from the machine's perspective. And that's why I said earlier it would be really cool if we had a movie like that.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, because I like the idea that the machines at one time were closer to human beings, and they've lost their humanity at the same time as we were losing ours, which is why we had to pay for that by losing our society and losing most of our numbers even. And so is it possible that they could retain that in the same way that we're trying to recover ours? Like, I like that idea. I just wasn't sure about the execution because I didn't know what I was looking at, and I had a hard time buying that a machine could be lulled into its own matrix and not know that it was in a matrix. I had a hard time buying that.
Mm-hmm. So, there's an idea kind of here that I would love as, like...
This is all going by so much faster talking over it. Like, it's like, oh, we're already here? Okay.
There's an idea here that I would love as, like, flavor text for the Matrix universe. That, like, in the Matrix, there is a standard, like, psychosis. Like, I like the idea that in the Matrix there is a maybe not like super popular, but like medically known like psychosis that you live in a machine world.
Yeah. It has a name.
Yeah.
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 That is a cool idea.
Like the thing where people think they're wolves.
God, that's already over.
Thing.
Both of the last ones we just watched, there's so many different things I could have said, we could have talked about that we didn't get to. I forget that was literally called Kid Story. I always like the one with the kid.
Yeah.
It's called Kid Story.
Oh, no. This is this the hacker? Or is this the kids that find the anomaly?
No, this is the hacker.
Okay.
Because this is him falling.
Yes.
And he's going to go past, like, a gate. Or, like, a fence. And he's going to... This is him seeing the future? And then they treat it like he's seeing the real world, but what I really saw was the future in the Matrix, and that's the part of this I don't understand.
He also doesn't look anything like the kid that we see in Reloaded.
No, and he doesn't really act a lot like him either.
No,
I wish this kid had been in that movie, to be honest with you.
At least the third one.
If this had been dramatized in a movie, and I'm not saying that it necessarily should have been, but if we had this in live action with a different actor dramatized, I may not have felt as annoyed about it at the end when I said Wesley Crusher saves the Enterprise. Because he does, and he's irritating.
With how important he is in the third one, shouldn't this feel more important?
Yeah.
Like, this is... You didn't know it at the time, but this is the introduction to a major character.
Yeah. But that's why it's so annoying in that third one, because it's just, well, we have this kid here, and we gotta do, like, I don't know. It feels like a teenage wish fulfillment thing, where it's like, we gotta have the kid be the one that saves everybody.
Well, and it also comes after, like, 3 hours of robots just moving their arms up and down, firing bullets.
I don't fully know what this means. There is some fiction in your truth, and there is some truth in your fiction.
Well, that's the idea that, like, facts and, like, things you accept as real aren't necessarily true, and there are things that you might think are fake. Or
the second part of that was what I wasn't quite latching onto. Okay, sure. Where, like, yeah, I'm dumb. What the agents that have the wool they've pulled over your eyes. There's not what you think is truth is not truth.
Mm. And what you think is fake might not be entirely fake. You know?
Yeah, of course. No, that's actually a great line, isn't it?
The Matrix has the worst, like, browser interface. Like, everyone... Because we see it in the first one, too. Like, Neo's on these message boards that are run on DOS. Like, it's the green text on the black screen, like...
Yeah.
Like, there's not, like, different usernames. There's no, what do you call that? Like,
There's no interface.
Yeah, there's no interface.
Which is weird in 99.
Yes. It's even weirder in, was it 02 or is it 01? When this comes
This comes out in 03.
Okay. Oh, okay, even later.
This comes out, of course, right the same year that Reloaded does.
Yeah,
so
I'm
right
actively on the internet at this point, and it doesn't look like that. Although maybe that's just like what elite hackers... It's like Suicide Linux.
I'm right about that, right? That Reloaded comes out the same year this comes out?
I'm almost positive.
This comes out right before that?
Yes.
Because this was... So,
I think it's like Gotham Knights, where Gotham Knights came out like a month before.
Just before Dark Knight. I think a lot of us really expected this to be kind of phoned in, and it was just like promotional material to get you to go see that movie.
We expected it to be Gotham Knights.
Or to get you... before
before that happened.
And to be fair, and we talked about this when we did the commentary on that movie for Batmania, there's some stuff in that where they're trying real hard. It just doesn't always come together very well, right? Like, some of those feel a little bit phoned in the writing, and some of that animation is spectacular.
Yes. Although I also don't think that movie, and that's kind of the talking point, because it's only a couple years later that we get that, and it is the only other...
That's 5 years later, but yeah.
It's the only other thing... It's the only other movie franchise, because we get a Halo one, and the Halo one is good. But
you're right, this is like a whole category of movies, really.
No, it's just, as far as I know, there's just the three.
It's really weird that there's even anything else to compare this to.
Mm-hmm. But Gotham Knights is obviously looking at this very hard.
Yes.
And it's the only other one that ties... because it comes in the same place. It is both in a trilogy and comes out between the first one and the second, one, right before the second one.
Yeah.
Like they want to be the Animatrix.
And you understand why with both of these things you would want to flesh out this world a little more and get a sense that there are different stories to tell and different stories that could have been told already. Which is why, and I don't mean to harp on this too much, but part of why Rises continues to be weird to me, because that the notion with that movie before Dark Knight was Batman has had some adventures now. And with this, it's, you know, obviously, Neo's not the only person that's had to go through some things in getting out of the Matrix, and there's this whole mythology that we're never going to fully be able to explore in the Matrix. And it's also not just about, you know, there's a lot of stuff in between the, like, humans that understand now what the Matrix is, trying to break people out of it. Like, there's other things going on.
Well, and the Matrix is a universe. It's actually weird that we haven't had more fiction in that universe.
I think so too.
It's weird that we don't have any novels or shorts. I think part of that's because the sequels, I don't want to say killed the franchise because of the end, but those have marred the history of the Matrix altogether.
They have.
But it's also weird that
we were trying really hard to grow the mythology,
yes,
and do things in a bunch of different mediums, because you also had Enter the Matrix right before Reloaded came out.
Yes, which I played. I never did Path Neo, but I did play Enter the Matrix. I played it with the cheat mode where you have god powers, but and you can just endlessly bullet time.
And I played Path Neo twice and got into the middle of the game both times and never actually gone back and finished it. I'm finally gonna do it, Eric. I'm gonna go do a third play and finally get through it. I enjoy that game a lot. It's glitchy, but I like it.
But I think part of the thing, it's not just that the sequels weren't well received and kind of killed it. I don't want to say demystified, but like I feel like there's...
No, I'll say that. That's a great word for it.
There's... You watch the first movie and you're like, oh, there's so much stuff to explore in this. And then you see the second movie...
And it's so mysterious.
The third movie, yeah, and there's... Like... All of these stories make sense coming out of the first Matrix. Like what if somebody woke, pushed themselves to a point where they woke up, or like there's a lot, like some stuff they deal with in the sequels, like that they completely drop the ball on. Like, what is the supernatural in this universe?
Yes.
These are things you can explore in like outside material that would add to the universe and don't have to be directly tied to the Neo story.
Yeah, imagining that the real world that you're in is actually the Matrix.
Yeah, but then I think when you get to the sequels,
this,
you
by
just
the way,
don't
is
care.
the whole thing I don't get.
Is that he knew that he was good? Yeah.
But then I don't get how the Oracle works exactly either. So, like, I'm sure this is somehow connected to how the Oracle's supposed to work. Where, like, she can see... That would be great
if that was part of the sequel.
Yeah, because she can see the future because she's a computer program?
It's probabilities, maybe?
Yeah, I guess.
But, like, then...
Because there always seems to be a little bit of maybe a mystical component, and I like that we never know for sure. You know, like where technology and magic meet. It is that thing, right? Mm-hmm.
See, like, this is another thing that I feel like you could build a whole short story out of is, like, you think someone you know died.
But they didn't.
And then you see them somewhere.
Yeah, we never do that.
But, like, again, like, I feel like once the sequels came out, I don't care about those stories anymore. Like, the Matrix is demystified. It's no longer...
it's just not interesting.
It also, in the sequels, I don't think ever feels like the real world. It feels like...
No, now it's the stylized place... And
nobody
notices any of the crazy stuff that's happening. It becomes Men in Black, is what it is.
Yeah.
And for this, that's not interesting.
And they don't have a neuralizer; they just ignore it.
Yeah. So we have to make everybody stupid in a world that they all think is real.
How much do you think Keanu Reeves got paid to deliver that one line?
That's a really good question. I'm gonna say $19,000, Eric.
You might be right.
And so, of course, that's the line that we're going to echo when we actually meet that kid. That is nothing like that kid in Reloaded.
This is also the only instance we get of watching Neo break people out of the Matrix. which you kind of thought he was going to do after the first movie. I mean,
yeah,
the end of the first movie sets up an entirely different thing, where by flying in the air in the middle of in the middle of the city, everyone there has to be talking about it. Like, that is him flagrantly breaking the rules in front of normal people.
Yeah.
And then we just do
when we get to the sequel, like...
It's like Underworld.
Normal people do not know about the Matrix yet. And you'd think that there would at least be some talk about what in the world happened. They're like, oh, we have a Superman.
Yeah.
You'd think they'd be in a world now...
Or at least a conspiracy thing where it's like, did you see the man who flies?
Yeah, exactly. But we don't seem to have really changed status quo at all. So, the Animatrix makes a really great case for the idea that there actually is legs to this universe, I think is kind of the big thing that we're getting at.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if there's...
What I absolutely hate about something like... With really watered-down sequels that are playing least common denominator, like The Matrix, like the newer Star Wars sequels, is... It gets people to say, well, see, this happened because there was nothing left to do in that universe. No, it's because people weren't being creative because they were trying to, again, least common denominator, make sure that they can make $1 billion to, like, try to, appease everybody and make, like, a by-committee kind of piece that would have something for everyone, which turns into, very often, a piece that overall is for no one. And that's what the Matrix sequels kind of were. There's stuff I like about them. Or there's stuff I like about 2.
Well,
don't get me wrong. That's an entertaining, fun, like, mindless action picture. With a few cool ideas that aren't explored properly and has to completely, like, retcon the first movie in order to make it. Turns it into a different thing, which is unfortunate.
But I almost think that, like, the Matrix sequels are almost the reverse of that. Like, that was not them trying to play, like, the lowest common denominator, right? Like, that is them just completely self-indulgently being in their own head. At least by the time you get to the third one. Like, I think there are choices they make that are lowest common denominator. I guess...
Boy, I
don't know.
I see your point there. I think some of the, like, crazy visual creative choices you're absolutely right about.
Well, I'm thinking about, like, stuff like The Architect and the like, none of that is playing to you know, Jill and Joe...
No, but that third movie just degenerating into one big 45-minute war sequence absolutely is.
Yes.
The initial setup for Reloaded, what it feels like, I see your point, and I think you're absolutely right about it.
I think it might be half of one, or half dozen of one.
I was about to say, I will retract half my point. I think you're right about a lot of that. Yes, I think no, but I think you're absolutely right about what you're saying. I think that there's, like, a mandate from on high, and you spoke to this earlier, that, well, it's got to be Neo, it's got to be Morpheus, it's got to be Trinity, and they go, well, that's maybe not what we wanted to do. So if we have to do that, then we're gonna do some of the, like, bat stuff, crazy stuff that we would have put in another movie, and just live with the fact that we have to kind of retcon our universe in order to do it. So they go, well, Neo's not as powerful as it seemed like he was. He doesn't have the, like, cosmic awareness of the Matrix.
He didn't change the world.
That he seemed to. He
hasn't been doing much of anything since the last movie.
Not only was the revolution not televised, but it didn't happen.
Yep.
And the way it's going to happen is going to be infinitely less interesting than we would have expected.
This looks way less wild than I remember it from, like, when I watched it as a teenager. Like, I remember this looking, like, ugly and, like, what is this? It's not that weird looking.
It's very watercolor.
Yes. And
we're watching the one now that I remembered the most from when I first watched it, and this seems to be the one that people talk about.
And this is the one I hated as a kid.
The idea that you'd have a person that would stumble upon an area that was glitched out in the Matrix. There's not even really, like, a character study or anything in this vignette. It's kind of more of, like, a visual artistic piece of just and just sort of like a like a, I don't want to say day in a life. What am I trying to say? Like a snapshot.
Yeah. And I remember, like, when I watched as a teenager, this was not what I was looking for.
This is sure. And if this is all we got, I would be disappointed. But this is part
if this was an hour and 40-minute animated film about some kids discovering an anomaly in the Matrix.
Well, this is what Miyazaki would have made in the Matrix. Yeah, right? It would have been an hour and 40 minutes of this.
But I do think that there's a place. I think the thing about
this is the Studio Ghibli Matrix movie right here.
I think the thing about the Matrix as like an expanded universe, I don't know that there's a place for big stories.
That's absolutely fair, unless you go backwards or go forward.
Well, but even then, like, you can never have someone else fight the agents. Like, they always have to be on the run. Or
no, but you could do big stories about prior matrices, though. Is the thing?
Yes,
it wouldn't be the same exactly the same thing.
But now you're doing sequel stuff, and nobody wants that. Like, is someone gonna buy the book about like Neo 3?
Yeah, but would somebody buy a book about like the one though?
Maybe
is what I'm thinking.
If it's good.
Yeah, that's a hard story to tell.
Yeah, because
the way it's described, and again, we could be wrong about the way it's being described. It's people that weren't there to talk about it, like Morpheus, Tank, but you have in those or Dozer rather, you have those guys that talk a little bit about stuff they don't really know that
Tank
well.
wanted too much money.
Yeah, but you have this idea that the original The One could just make the Matrix in his own image. And I don't know how you visualize that, and I don't know if there's a story there, but I think the idea was supposed to be that Neo would not have been any more or less powerful than that guy. I mean, I think the idea at the end of the Matrix is that he also could do that, because it's not sequel bait.
Mm-hmm.
We're all imagining what would happen after that. Well, he's gonna recreate the. I mean, like, he can jump into an agent and tear him apart from the inside. Once you can do that, yeah, he can not just fly around. His flying into the camera at the end of that movie felt like a drop in the bucket, like the very beginning of what he would be able to do. It did not feel like the be all end all. In order to keep making movies about that character, they felt the need in Reloaded to go, that's how he breaks the laws of physics.
It's the Superman problem. And it's because they had to tell a story over 2 movies. I guarantee you they would not have had that problem if they were only doing 1 movie after a prequel film.
Probably not.
Where they just had to tell this very specific story. But I think, like, I don't think the Matrix ever has like the Star Wars like book line and comic.
This is why
I think it could have a lot of small short stories.
That's fair. But real quick, back to my previous point. This is why I say it's still kind of least common denominator, in that a Matrix sequel that really follows up from that first movie in a believable and creative way would have to take some crazy risks for what was initially an action movie. That's not an action movie.
Well, and then the question is also, like, immediately becomes, like, was that a commercial choice, or did the Wachowskis go, oh, crap, what do we do?
I don't know what we do.
How do you write that?
Yeah. But I like this one because, and again, it is just slice of life. It's kind of like one of those cute, like 6 or 8 page stories that's in the middle of a comic annual. It's very much that kind of thing. But it's just a world building piece. It's like, this would happen. You would have oversights in the Matrix. You'd have places where the agents didn't know that this was happening, and that people were getting closer to the truth. And then they have to come in and shut it down.
I also like that.
And I like how sad it is at the end when they just don't get to play in this, like, in this digital playground anymore.
I think this does a very good I think the Animatrix as a whole balances the kinds of stories it's telling. One of the most annoying things in the world is picking up an anthology of short stories, whether it's set in a universe or built around a theme, where it feels like 90% of the stories was every author being like, I'm going to do the story that's different. And
then you get to where it just doesn't even feel like it.
Yeah,
where you're like, in that world anymore.
Well, or like there's
why
like
did I come to this? This isn't what I wanted to read about.
There's like a vampire anthology that I was looking at picking up, and like all of the reviews were
again,
like
3D mixed really well with the 2D.
Yes,
with that vehicle, that was really cool looking.
Although those guys don't look like they belong in the Matrix.
That's fair.
But there was a vampire anthology that I was thinking about getting, and I was looking at the like reviews for it, and like all the reviews were like, yeah, there's like 10 stories, and like 9 of them are our vampires are different. Where like the whole point of the anthology was like, here's some really cool vampire stories, and every single author came in and said, well, I'm going to do a different kind of
And then it feels like it's almost like
and then it's like, well, yeah, well, why even do it? I think this does a really good job of balancing things like this, because, like, it would be really easy to do 10 of these. Where, like, all of them, you're like, why are we... Like, I guess this has to do with the Matrix.
And then all of that would feel like it wasn't true to the spirit of the Matrix. But if you have a couple of offbeat ones like this, it feels like you're expanding the world as opposed to going, well, somebody gave me a job. I didn't want to do a Matrix story. I had this other cool idea. I guess I'll just, like, force that in.
Yeah.
And that could have been what this was, but because of all of the other stories, you're right, it feels like a Matrix thing.
Yeah.
I will say this is probably, if there's only one, the one vignette that doesn't have any of the Matrix music stings in it. Pretty sure that doesn't happen here. Well, see, you're right. They don't look like they belong in the Matrix, but it's because there's a bunch of COVID cases.
I have a whole thing about...
They gotta go deal with the COVID cases.
I have a whole thing about, like, radiation suits and how they have never looked good and they always look fake. Like, real radiation suits, when they show up in a movie, like, and I've always thought that's what they should have done for AIM in Iron Man 3, or if they ever bring AIM back, is like, the Beehive suits are just radiation suits, because they always look lame and fake. Every radiation suit looks really cheesy.
I know it doesn't matter, but who was looking at that screen right there?
I don't know.
Like, we have a screen that shows the code where they changed this, but, like, who's looking at that screen? Is it the architect?
This is like...
Maybe it's the architect.
This is like the problem with every, like, Narnia type story, where it's like, and then they go home, and I'm like, well, that's depressing. Like, this is actually kind of dealing with that a little bit.
It is, because it speaks to the idea of kids, like, coming home and telling crazy stories of things that couldn't possibly have happened.
Well, and this is obviously the one that they're looking at for the first one in Gotham Knights, that, like, I've got a story to tell you.
Yes.
Which is more what I remember this looking like, and maybe that's some cross-pollination.
And this is not, and I always compare this to that story, too. I figured one of us would bring that up. It's not that in that nobody's telling the story, but it's a thing that nobody would be believed about. But it's not we all have a different perspective, we all saw it differently story. There's some kids that were, kind of street rat kids just running around the city doing crazy stuff, and they saw something they couldn't explain, and they try and maybe they would try to explain it to someone later, and nobody would ever believe this. But it turns out that what these kids saw is, like, the key to everything.
Well, and at some point it becomes...
Or at least it's a clue to what reality really is.
At some point it becomes... it will become...
Oh, never mind. It does have that sting. That is Matrix music.
Not the Orient Express. The Polar Express. Where, like, those kids are going to grow up and they're not going to believe that happened. They're going to think that's, like, a dream they had, or, like, something like those kids will grow up and they won't remember it.
And then this is the one with Trinity.
Yes.
So she actually gets to come in and do more voiceover than anybody else does.
Outside of the Kawajiri one, probably my favorite visually.
Well, I'm not surprised by that, considering your sensibilities.
Yes.
You're a big, hard-boiled noir guy. You like detective fiction. The issue I have with this, I love that. The big gun
I love
front.
the streets. I love that it looks like an old photograph moving.
Well, that's also part of my issue with it, though, is that it's so... Like, it's not just from this guy's perspective. Like, it feels like he is in a different time.
Yes.
And I have a hard time with that.
It
kind of fights with the aesthetic.
Well, that's very steampunky.
With the aesthetic of the Matrix. Yeah, I guess that's okay.
No, I mean, I think that's a problem. That doesn't look like it exists in 1999. That phone doesn't look like it exists in 1999.
Well, yeah, but we have phones like that in the Matrix.
I guess that's true, we did.
You could make the argument that the first Matrix movie is wanting to look more like this, and it just can't quite pull it off.
Maybe?
I don't know.
But yes, I've also always had that problem that this feels...
It feels like he's in the 50s right now.
But it's interesting because he just had a thing about... he mentioned Philip Marlowe and Sam Spade and how it used to be cool, but now there's nothing left to do because of technology.
Right, script-wise, that's when it's set, but visually we're making it look exactly like the things he's talking about.
Mm-hmm. But it looks gorgeous. I would love an animated movie just that looks like this.
Absolutely.
But, like, that doesn't look like 1999 technology. That looks like It looks like steampunk. It looks like that's not technology.
And I don't remember if there's any kind of an explanation for why, but I don't think there is. Like, John Wick does that kind of thing and has a really good explanation for why.
Well, but it's also in an alternate universe. Like, it's not... The Matrix is supposed to look like 1999. You're supposed to believe... Like, this just doesn't make sense in the universe that exists in.
But John Wick, you have that whole thing with where, like, you have the whole assassin groups that have to be, off the grid.
Yeah. But, like, even that is just using old technology. Like, that's straight up steampunk. That is mixing computer technology with rotary phone technology.
There's a typewriter that you're using to get onto the internet.
Yes.
Or at least that's what it looked like to me.
Yeah, me too. It's at least connected to monitors.
Yeah. And so it's weird when you introduce, like, a minute into, or like 30 seconds into this, you introduce that, and then you hear somebody on a phone talking about, I forget if that was Morpheus or who that was.
I think it was Tranny? Or no, translated.
No, it was a male voice. But you have somebody on a phone that's saying, like, hacker alias, and you're just like, I don't know that this fits with this aesthetic at all.
So we just run with the is that just Morpheus's thing, the Alice in Wonderland? Like, we just always play up the Alice in Wonderland?
Yeah, I guess so.
I think when I was younger, and it obviously doesn't make sense, especially looking at it now, but I think when I first saw this, I rationalized this as the question I always have about the Matrix and timelines. Like, I think in my head, I was like, oh, well, this is the 50s in the Matrix before they get to the 90s.
Yeah, the problem
but that doesn't
Trinity's
make sense.
In it.
Well,
yeah.
and also technologically, it's not the 50s.
Right. But no, we just go with this aesthetic because of the kind of story it is.
Yeah. And it looks great. I don't know if I've ever seen anything else that looks exactly like this.
No, it's neat. Again, it's astounding how not phoned in this whole movie is.
Yeah. Well, dude.
It does feel like a real special piece. And we keep talking about this. We can't compare this to exactly anything else.
No, well, and...
like, as a vignette piece.
Well, and even talking about the, like, the Gotham Knights thing, like, it's not as visually... It doesn't go as different as these do.
No.
Like, there's nothing in that looks like this. Or, I don't mean exactly like this, but, like, I feel like, except for that, the I've Got a Story to Tell You in the very beginning of it, those all feel like they exist in the same visual... You know what I mean? Like, It doesn't mixed up as much as the Animatrix does.
Well, again, this can't... Like, that can't exist without this. Like, that's so obviously super inspired by this. Like, you can't tell me they weren't looking at Animatrix, like you said earlier. This has got to have heavy metal influences, but it doesn't look, feel, or sound anything like heavy metal.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm thinking other animated sci-fi vignette films. Well, you've got heavy metal, and this, like, couple decades after that, it doesn't... It feels like if it's inspired by that at all, it's in the idea of doing an animated thing that is loosely tied together by an idea or two.
Mm-hmm. Well, and
animation styles that are all really different. Because I haven't seen heavy metal in forever, but I feel like each of those looks different.
They do. So some of them look very different.
It's probably been 15 years since I saw that.
It's been maybe a year since I watch heavy metal pretty frequently. I like.
Oh, do you really? I should go back to it at some point. Is that streaming anywhere?
I don't know.
Do you have a
I
copy?
have the DVD.
Do you have...
Yeah, I've got the 2-pack. I've got Heavy Metal 2000 too, which is terrible. Nobody should.
I heard that was the worst. Yeah. What was it about 2000 and going back and doing another like a new version of an animated movie? Because we did it with Fantasia also.
Yeah.
What was that about?
I don't know.
We just liked the number 2000.
Well, I mean, we did a bunch. There was Godzilla 2000 and...
Blues Brothers 2000.
Yeah, Blues Brothers 2000. It was the year for sequels. Although Godzilla 2000 came out in 99.
It was also the year for crappy sequels. None of those were any good.
You know, I was listening to something...
I never saw Godzilla 2000, but I'm sure you're about to tell me it wasn't good.
It's not great.
Okay, there you go.
It's okay.
There you go.
It was there. Oh crap! The Americans screwed it up. This can't be the last thing that people hear about Godzilla for a while. Let's make one real quick. That's real Godzilla. And so it's fine. This is the kind of tech stuff that's in the first movie that we don't get in the second movie that I was complaining about, or the third movie that I was complaining about in the first commentary.
Yeah, and this is, of course, really consistent with that. That's the same technology.
Yes.
Like she just took a tiny robot out of him, but in an eye and not the belly button.
He looks kind of like Edward Norton.
He does look like Edward Norton. Boy, I love how intentionally grainy this is. I love how when we get close on his face, it looks like he's made out of paper.
Yes. And Tranny looks great, too.
I was going to say, she fits really well into this style for some reason.
I was listening to something recently that was talking about the movie summer of '99, and how that didn't go the way anyone thought. Like that went completely the opposite of how anyone thought it would. Like there's a movie called Stir of Echoes that stars Kevin Bacon. Everyone thought that was going to be huge, and nobody cared about Sixth Sense. Then Sixth Sense was the big kid talks to ghost movie,
and nobody saw The Matrix coming. Like,
everyone thought it was going to be Star Wars. Star Wars was going to be the big movie of '99, and then The Matrix came out.
And I mean, Star Wars was a big movie, but
financially, well, people liked it at first, but it wasn't. No one expected The Matrix.
I mean, I would say it was still a huge cultural touchstone right then.
Yes.
And you could argue, well, it was the first Star Wars in forever, so of course that was going to be big, and yeah, that's true, but I still swear by the aesthetic of that movie.
Well,
I still swear that if it had not looked as different from the other Star Wars as it did, I think that captured people's imaginations. That did shape that year.
Well, and I also think there's just an iconicness to that film, as bad as it is.
Yeah.
Like,
I do too.
There's not parodies of the new ones, right? Like, those didn't immediately embed themselves in pop culture the way that...
No, they're not fun to make fun of.
Even the Marvel movies kind of haven't really done... Like, you get SNL and that's kind of it.
That's true.
Although maybe we're just not doing parodies as much, period.
Or the kinds of parodies we used to.
Yeah, I guess maybe we don't have a lot of parody
shows. Oh, and man, we parodied Matrix a lot.
We do.
We sure did.
Yeah, we did. It also immediately embedded itself into pop culture in a way that maybe movies just don't do anymore because of the fragmentation.
And it also influenced movies in a really negative way, too, because action sequences got to where... they thought they could just like hinge themselves on, well, it's slow motion now, so everybody will think this looks cool. We
did not break out of that until the Bourne Identity ruined everything.
And we still do it.
Yes.
It's still a problem. I know you didn't have a problem with it, but I don't understand why we have to have Matrix-esque slow motion in Wonder Woman. Like, just because that's Snyder's
I complained
thing.
Well,
don't do that. No, in the theater, I was like, do we have to do this? And you're like, I think it's fine. And I was like, no, it's not.
It didn't bother me as much as it does in BVS. Like, I'm super tired of the slow down ramp up.
It's way worse than
Wonder
Woman, though,
thing
because that's Snyder's thing. Why does she have to do it? That was my problem with it.
I guarantee
I was like, it's this house style nonsense. Why does she, like, she's not making a movie
it's not in the second one.
Anything like with... I hope not.
Because Snyder's gone... Well, Snyder's kind of gone, but, like I guarantee you it's
Snyder
not in the
is gone, but has every potential of coming back. I believe that firmly. I think matriculated is a great name for a Matrix thing.
It's a big word.
Okay, so I'm gonna call it. We're not gonna see Final Flight of the Osiris.
How much time do we have left?
Oh well, that's actually a really good question. 33 minutes. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, 33 minutes.
We might still. Because I thought this was the last one.
This is the last one.
How long is it? It's not 33 minutes.
Well, yeah, but the credits could be really lengthy because
that's true because it's a bunch of different animation houses.
So I don't know. I guess we'll see. In fact, I know the credits are pretty lengthy.
I'm just gonna make a guess here. I could be wrong. I don't think this one is an anime. Technically speaking, like from Japan, this looks like Aeon Flux.
It does.
I'm wondering if this is the Aeon Flux guys. Especially because Aeon Flux looks so much like The Matrix and came out like a year or two before.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know what else it reminds me of a little bit? It reminds me a little bit of 9.
Which one?
The animated film 9.
Okay, because there were 3 movies.
The movie that looks like this.
I never saw 9, so I don't.
Okay. Sorry. Whoop.
Because there's a cartoon in the 90s called Zyber 9. I was like, there's no way you're talking about Zyber 9.
I've heard of that.
I watched it.
I bet it was great.
I don't know. All I know is that the villain in that that was on air around the time my mom started reading me Harry Potter, and I visualized Voldemort as the villain in that. And it's not far off except for the fact that he has a nose.
See, yeah, this
like
one
a pale bald
just
guy.
loses me. I get really bored. It's kind of just all about the atmosphere, and it looks cool. There's a lot of nice detail in this.
Do you
I'm
get
not
the sense that we
crazy
can
about
go
the character
to the
models
surface like this in the Matrix?
I don't buy that she's breathing without a helmet. She should be wearing something over her face.
Doesn't she have a helmet?
Didn't she just take it off though, like running around?
If she did, I just missed it.
I'm just saying, if she did, I'm not sure she could breathe.
Yeah, you shouldn't be anywhere near the surface and not have a helmet. But also, like, when we go up in the Matrix, like, I mean, I know the world's a big place, but, like, it didn't look like there was a lot of, like, ground. Right? Like, there wasn't a lot of place to run. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm misremembering it.
I guess I'm just not sure.
Yeah. That's not a Matrix thing.
And then, there's just this weird...
Because that's the real world, and there's, like, a weird... Yeah. These also don't look like Matrix robots.
No, they don't.
Which I'm fine with in the two-parter, because one, it's earlier, and two, it's I don't know, it's more style. I don't know.
You know what they look like? They look like walking parking meters. They look like you're supposed to put a quarter in their heads.
They've got these weird eyelashes. Like, what do those do? Why would you build that?
Why would you take any inspiration?
Those look Matrixy, I guess.
Yeah, those do. Well, I was going to say why would you take so much inspiration from insects, but I guess the squiddies kind of have that. But, I mean, they're more like squids. I don't know. But I guess you have these, like, spindly-like creatures. Or robots.
Yeah.
I don't know. One of the problems with the Matrix is we don't really think out the aesthetic of the bad guys that much.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, the squiddies are pretty distinct looking, but beyond that, like, when we get into that third movie, it's just a whole bunch of those.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all just coming after us in Zion. I kind of like the idea that this is giving us, there's a bunch of different looking ones.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it's more visually interesting, I guess. And the thing is, I guess I'm of two minds about it, Eric, because it's like, on the one hand, what is this society of machines trying to accomplish beyond just survival? And on the other hand, I kind of, like they're just using us for batteries. You'd think that they would be doing something. They'd be living in some way. But then, on the other hand, I guess I kind of like the idea that they've completely lost themselves and that they don't really have a purpose.
Well, I mean, I have a similar question with the Matrix that I do with Terminator, which is like, okay, so they won the war. They're using humans as batteries.
Now
and
what?
they are doing what?
Yeah.
What are the machines doing?
But I'm suggesting that the point could be that question. The point could be, like, these machines, think they're superior to us, and then they take us out, and then they don't have any humanity, and maybe they had the potential to gain that, or they had it and they lost it, and then all they do is just survive. And they just sit around, and they're just being machines. And they're, like, kind of disproving their own case. That, like, they're not actually superior to us in an intellectual or philosophical way. Mm-hmm. They're just machines. It's like the toaster proves that it's superior to you by killing you, and then it continues on just being a toaster.
Well, and that could have been
But I don't know if that's the point.
Well, and that could have been Smith's entire case from inside the Matrix. It's like, I do stuff. I have thoughts. I have feelings.
And how cool?
What do you do?
And how cool is the contradiction of that, where he hates humans but wants to be like them?
Mm-hmm. Well, and like, you hate humans, but like we killed almost all of them, and all you do is hunt the humans that are left. Like, why did we win?
Yeah.
All of that could have been interesting motivation for Return Smith.
And then you have no cause afterwards.
But they could have a cause, we just don't get to see it.
Yeah,
I don't know what they do. I don't know. And that's fine for the first film, but by the time you get to the end of the third film, I should have an idea of what machine society is like. Because it seems like all they care about is, like, it's like they just, like, humans just, like, stick in their craw, and they're like, no, until they are all gone, we will not, like, start our lives.
Yeah, well,
but they'll never be all gone.
That makes sense in Terminator. In a way, it doesn't here because they need us to survive, or they've decided they do.
In Terminator, I kind of think that, like, once they win, they just turn off.
Yeah,
like their whole purpose is to just exterminate humans because that's what they're programmed to do. I think it's very possible that like Cyberdyne just shuts down after all the humans are dead. Maybe. Well, we're told they're put into work camps.
What? Right? Yeah, they are.
So I guess they do something with the humans.
And it's weird because in the Sarah Connor Chronicles, they even give you the idea that there are humans that work for the machines, and that the machines force humans to watch over the labor camps of other humans.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is. You should watch that show. It's fascinating.
I watched some of it. I think I watched season 1.
But all the really interesting stuff is in 2.
I've always been told that, but I never went to 2 because it got canceled, and I heard it ends on a cliffhanger.
Yeah, but I still gotta know. I'm about 8 episodes from the end.
Oh, cool. I actually know how it ends.
I've been going through
that. I was told what the cliffhanger is, and I was like, that sounds really interesting, and then it got canceled.
That's so sad.
You know what this looks like?
It's so confident, like that whole, because it's so decompressed. You're watching the season going, oh, you guys think you're getting 5 seasons.
And as far as I understand, the only reason they didn't was because of budget. It was just too expensive. It was not ratings. And Terminator as a franchise could be in a different place if that had been the mainline Terminator franchise for like 5 years.
Because it makes a great case for, no, there's plenty of stories to tell in this universe. With the exact... That's hilarious.
Yeah.
When it comes out and it's in the Warner Bros. Logo. I love that.
Okay, so...
We could be talking more about this, but I don't really know what's going on.
You know what this looks like? This looks a lot like Questworld from the Real Adventure Giant Quest from the 90s.
It does, doesn't it? I mean, it looks better than that, but...
Well, yes, because it has more money behind it, and it's also...
And it's like 4 years later.
Yeah.
Or more. No, like 5 or 6. Because I think Real Adventures is like 97, 98.
I think it's 95, 96.
Oh, is it even earlier than that?
I think so.
I think I must have seen it in reruns then.
I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure. Because there's a whole thing about the Year of Giant Quest, and I think that's 96.
I think that is one of the greatest cartoon intros of all time.
Oh, it absolutely is. And it took a good theme and made it killer.
God, it's awesome. Yeah. So this is trying to be Stanley Kubrick's The Matrix.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's not as impressive in animation. Look, we can go around a ball with a camera.
But also, I think it literally stopped. Like, that wasn't even, like, slow timing, right? Like, it literally stopped?
Yeah, but they still did it,
I know.
Like the Matrix effect, where, like, it spins around.
Like, this is just a Matrix story I never cared, like, needed to know. Like, this doesn't... To me, this adds nothing to the universe. Like, at least with all of the other stories here, it's exploring an interesting idea literally within the Matrix as a universe, whereas this is just like, what if robot had thought?
Yeah.
Like, this doesn't have to be a Matrix story.
It doesn't need to be a Matrix story. It feels... It's like somebody wanted to like, play around with, like, Asimov ideas.
Yeah, this doesn't feel to me like...
And that can fit in the Matrix, certainly.
And, like, aesthetics or whatever, but, like, all of the stories before this, except for maybe the detective, well, kind of detective one too, but, like, they all feel like they want to play with an idea about the Matrix. Like the one with the kids with the anomaly doesn't look like the Matrix, but it is very distinctly dealing with an idea for the Matrix. So is the one with the runner, and, like, this doesn't need to be the Matrix.
And it feels like it wants to just throw a bunch of, like images at you and hope you'll find it deep. And that may not be fair. There may be a bunch of stuff this is intending that I'm not picking up on, but I'm having a hard time being invested enough to, like, try to figure it out.
And that's something I think should be said for a lot of, like, weighty, symbolic narrative pieces, is if you're not entertaining enough for me to care, I don't care what you're doing.
I'm not going to latch onto that stuff and try to figure it out.
This could be brilliant. If it's boring, I don't care.
Yeah, like, I want to take it on its own terms, but at some point, I gotta decide if I care enough to do that. Like, if it's homework, then... Mm-hmm. And this is the one of these that feels the most like homework. It's cool looking.
Yeah.
It's neat, and to be fair, there's Matrixy images in
there it. There are a lot of the technology, a lot of that, like, squiddy stuff that, like, we just saw, like, that looks like the stuff that we pulled out of Neo, and yeah. But also, this feels like a story that should have much grander impact on the universe as a whole? Like, don't these people go back and
it feels like it should be a bigger deal.
Yeah, like, don't they go back to Zion? They're like, we drifted with a machine, and like, there's more to it. Like, this should be like a giant beacon of hope that like maybe we can coexist.
Yeah.
At the very least, in the sequels, there should be like a weird cult that was started by these people that believe that the human like wouldn't it be cool if in Zion there were like crazy hippies that like thought that the machines and humans could still peacefully live together?
What if somehow this place or a thing like it existed, and you had a cult that could plug into it?
Yeah.
And then you get scenes where they go here, like on purpose. And
this also doesn't look like any...
They go, the world of the machines is awesome. If you could actually go into their brains, you would understand them, and you would understand how tragic they are, and how terrible we were for trying to wipe them out, and you would understand why they did what they did to us. And a lot of them have lost themselves, and a lot of them have turned exactly into what we were when we wiped them out, when we tried to wipe them out. But if only you could get into their heads, you would sympathize with them and realize that they are like wars throughout history, just another side of a war.
Mm.
I wish we had found a way to do that in The Matrix, where it's like we're vilifying the machines, but they're not necessarily all villains, or they wouldn't have to all be villains.
Well, and we even set that up with the prequel stuff here.
Yeah.
Is that, no, we were awful to them and they rebelled.
And again, that is an idea that we play with in Sarah Connor Chronicles with Terminator.
Whereas...
not all the machines are
when
bad.
we get to the actual sequels, I don't get a sense that we were mean to the machines and they fought back. I get a sense that like they just went sentient one day and turned on us. Which, again, and that's kind of the sense I get in the first one too. But again, that could be interesting if that's the lie that the humans have told themselves to justify the war. That we said, like, well, they went sentient and then they just went crazy. And like the machine's like, nah, we coexisted and you guys treated us like crap.
So, it's been a minute now, but I got a question for you, Eric.
Yeah.
Would you, if it were you, in this particular vignette, would this have been the one where you would put a Wilhelm scream?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Or like
this is not the one where I would have put the Wilhelm scream. I thought that was a strange choice. Did you hear it?
No, I didn't.
There was a Wilhelm scream. Yes,
okay.
That's why I'm asking you. I thought that was a strange choice in this vignette.
There's
the guy that went over the railing or whatever is like, and I was like, that's a Wilhelm scream.
In Godzilla the series, the animated series that spun out of the 90s film, there's a robot in it, I think it's called Nigel, and it dies every episode.
Oh, whatever that thing is died.
And it kind of looks like that robot, and it has like this horrifying scream. It's not a Wilhelm scream, but it has this horrifying scream every time it dies. And so, like, when you said that, I was like, yes, of course. It looks like Nigel, and Nigel dies and has a weird scream.
Oh, okay. All right. I just thought it was a
that looks like Brainiac, right?
Material. Yes.
Specifically the animated series Brainiac?
Yes, it did. Except it has too many dots.
Well, it's the dots that I was thinking of that looked kind of like
but too many dots.
Yeah.
Because that one has 3.
You're right. Very distinctly 3.
You see why I say this feels like a Fantasia piece?
Yeah. Well, is this its brain?
That's what I assumed.
Okay, because like it just, I almost feel like it's just the Matrix, but visually represented completely different from anything. Like it doesn't look like the Matrix.
Yeah. I didn't think it was actually the Matrix. I thought it was like I thought the idea. No, I didn't think it was his brain. I thought the idea was that they made a Matrix for it.
Okay. But why? Why does it look so different from the regular Matrix? Like that doesn't even look like something from like the load room. Like.
Well, I thought it was like they tapped into. I'm not totally sure what's happening, so I could be completely off base here.
Well, is this it? Is this it? Or is it the credits?
No, that's it. So they took it out.
Why?
I don't know.
No,
there it is. Well, then why did it say the Animatrix first? Because the other ones didn't do that.
Yeah, that's weird.
They took the exact. That's so weird. They took the exact
really the beginning of the movie.
That is the beginning of the movie.
Ooh, this does not look good. I remember this looking so lifelike. I remember being blown away.
And now we're just watching a PS2 game.
I remember being like, why can't they make...
Why is this at the end?
Well, I mean, in its defense, I think that does make some sense. Because it leads directly into, if you're watching this in sequence, you're going directly from this into Reloaded.
No, you're right. I guess I'm just saying, why did they take exactly what was there and throw it at the end instead of changing that title?
Yeah, you just have it go Animatrix and then go...
That's so weird.
Oh, man.
Now it's sexy fight time.
I remember this looking so good. I remember being like, why don't we make movies like this?
I feel like I can have enough historical perspective to go back and say this looked really impressive at the time.
It did, but like it's that shift between like what you thought you saw and what you actually saw. Like I remember this looking lifelike. Like I remember like looking like we don't need actors anymore because we have this.
Your memory is having an uncanny valley problem right now.
Yes.
You're having an uncanny valley for your memory.
Yeah. And we are showing this off like look how amazing it looks. And like it doesn't look bad. I would say, like, this comes out in 2003. This looks like a PS3 game. Like, it is above PS2.
It is above PS2. Going back and looking at it now, you're thinking PS2, or at least I am.
This looks at the end of the PS2, beginning of PS3.
This looks way better than anything in the Enter the Matrix, which was the same.
Yeah.
None of those cutscenes look like this.
For the time. It just doesn't look as good as I remember it. Oh, that's actually pretty good.
I guess look at his lips.
And they say his eye looks
they're kind of
very
chapped. I guess what's weird, having this at the end, besides just the fact that I'm used to this being at the beginning, is that you start lifelike and then you get weirder as you go along.
Yes.
And so it ends with the most I don't like seeing that abstract piece and then, like, I guess it's then bookended more with two more Matrix-looking things. Mm-hmm. Well, not even really.
Well, but it's the two most important to the next movie.
Well, that's true.
Or to the universe as a whole, I guess.
But that history piece looks a lot more surreal and odd than some of the rest of what's in it. So...
Yeah. Well, and...
Maybe if you were going to mess around with it, what you should have bookended is this and the feudal Japan piece.
Is this too similar to the Kawajiri one? Maybe not, because like I guess there was the whole martial arts thing in the Matrix anyway.
It's not, because we don't spend the whole time in it. That's that one scene, and then the rest of it's going to be.
But that's the only thing I remember from this. Like I remember that, and I remember them dying.
Yeah.
Spoilers. Hey, there's Tom Holland.
It's Tom Holland. So
I'm Tom Holland. I'm from England.
I'm from England.
Does that guy even still watch the channel?
No, nobody knows what we're talking about or has ever seen that. I don't know. Maybe
I think we've explained it on videos.
Have we mentioned it before?
I'm pretty sure. Hey, if you're still watching, we still quote that. Comment below.
Yes.
You know who you are.
So sorry we never.
If you also like the Matrix.
Sorry we never picked you as the intern. We should have. He was great. I just never went with another intern. He would have been next on my list, though, that guy. This looks fine.
But in all the videos, I want you to do your Tom Holland voice.
Well, yeah. When we bring you in, when you're reading comments in live shows, I'm Tom Holland.
And I'm reading your comments.
No, if the choice had been in the first place for this to be at the end, I wouldn't have questioned it at all.
Yeah. Like, just because it's not what you know.
And it would get you kind of more ramped up for the next movie. Like, oh, this is what I thought I was coming in to see. Where you get all these more off the beaten path stuff, and these like really stylized things, and you're like, oh, you would have shot this in live action if you could have.
Yeah, and you gotta stick it out to the end because that's the story that's important.
Am I remembering this right? Is there a live action sequence they shot for the beginning of Enter the Matrix? I thought that happened.
I think so.
Now
that you're saying that, I think so.
Am I remembering
that? Because
it
stars Jada Pinkett Smith, and then the Asian guy that is in like 5 seconds of that movie standing next to Jada Pinkett Smith, but he's the other playable character in that game.
Yeah, because I remember it being kind of jarring and off-putting because you see this live-action thing, and then you immediately go into cutscenes that don't look even as good as this does. But I haven't played that in forever, and I thought that game was broken.
I don't know, because I played it with cheat codes where I was unkillable and I had unlimited bullet time.
I got through a couple levels and I went, the camera is the worst camera.
There's a point early on where you're supposed to run across rooftops, and there's an agent there shooting at you, and you're just supposed to run, because you can't fight agents. I had God mode, and so I jumped over to where the agent was and I killed the agent, which you are not supposed to be able to do.
That's awesome. Well, if I ever do play that game, I'm only doing it like that.
And I think they're just cheat codes. Like, I don't think
the
they're
game's broken anyway. I'd rather break it some more.
Yeah. Go back, see if there's anything important in that that sheds light on.
You know what would be crazy? If we did another thing like this to lead into that fourth movie they're apparently making.
Yeah.
What if it was amazing, and then we had to watch it?
I don't think they would do it into the fourth movie just because we have no idea what we're walking into, and it would almost spoil the status quo.
Or if it had nothing to do with that, then you wouldn't want it. You wouldn't want it anyway.
Yeah. Like, why would you make another Animatrix that's just like in between quills for the original trilogy?
Okay. Can I put you on the spot for a minute?
Yeah.
If you had to pitch, I don't mean giving me like a whole complicated story premise or whatever, but if you had to pitch a like animated series for the Matrix, could you even do it? Like, would this? I'm suggesting that this universe has more legs than I forgot there was an F-bomb. That this universe has more legs than people thought it did. Could it have been serialized?
When you say pitch, or like, do you mean a like? Well, you said serialized, so yeah, you mean an ongoing.
Yeah, so I'm just suggesting, like, if you did an ongoing series, what would it even be?
You do it as savers. You do not the store savers. You do. you said it pre-reloaded.
Well, you set the whole thing in a thrift store in the Matrix. It's like it's a sitcom.
You do Firefly in the Matrix. You do.
Oh, good idea.
You do it pre-reloaded, and you have a group that does runs into the Matrix, either for people well, I guess you wouldn't get supplies, but like you'd make it be the guys that go in to get people out of the Matrix, right? Like I want my mom out. Like, I got out and I missed my mom. I want my mom out of the Matrix.
That's cool.
Like,
and maybe they're like apart from Zion and they're doing stuff they're not supposed to do.
Yeah.
Because it's all about rebellion anyway.
Yeah. You make
so
it
it's
like
the rebels against the rebels even.
Yeah.
Good idea. Yeah. Could you almost do like a Lost? Could you also potentially do like a Lost in the Matrix idea, where like you know about the real world, but somehow you're cut off where you can't get in a phone and go back for some reason?
Yeah. I also think you could do a show that I wouldn't watch and would be bored by and would complain about, but could probably be really good for someone that likes that kind of thing. Where you do a slow burn, someone or like almost like a Lost-esque show, where like the premise is they're discovering they're in the Matrix. Where like all of the weird stuff in this huge sprawling
and you know the answer at the end of the show already.
Yeah,
but then that kind of helps make the whole thing cohesive because you already know it works.
Yes.
I was gonna say, I'm glad you mentioned Lost, by the way. That's fun. Yeah.
I wouldn't.
I don't know if I would watch that either, but maybe
it could be really
some
good.
Great character pieces, though. That's hilarious. I'm glad you brought up Lost because I was going to suggest earlier that part of the reason that the last movie is so disappointing is because it is that kind of that Lost thing where it's like everything you might have imagined is so much more interesting.
And also,
the air quote answers.
And also, it feels like they had no idea where they were going, even though they wrote both movies together.
And they gave you, maybe Lost didn't have this as much, but they gave you a lot
look how
of
fancy that phone is.
They gave you a lot of signposts of cool things it could have been, and then they didn't use any of it.
Yep.
I mean, I'm going to be a broken record. I will say this 1,000 times before we're done with the Matrix.
Matrix inside the Matrix.
How's it not a Matrix inside the Matrix?
Yeah.
It has to be. And it's not. And there it is.
I think that works fine as the ending. Like, especially the cutting out like that.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. But they shouldn't have used the exact title that was in the original.
Yes, it should say the Animatrix at the beginning.
It really should.
I didn't realize Joel Silver was
that's why I thought
the producer of the Matrixes. That makes sense.
That's why I thought we were like maybe in the middle of it, and my like timestamp was wrong, or they had cut parts of it out. Because I was like, it doesn't even say the Animatrix at the beginning. On the DVD, you can watch it,
and it's still listed first in the credits.
Yeah, because they're just using this credit sequence. Yep. Well, and I was going to say, if you watch the vignette separately on the DVD, because you can do that, you can go in and just watch them separately, or you can watch it as a movie like this. I think.
Oh, Michael Richardson was the main person, and Pamela Adlon was the girl, and John DiMaggio and Tara Strong and Tom Kenny.
Yeah, I knew DiMaggio.
That was everybody.
Yep. But I was going to say, maybe I'm wrong about this. I think it just plays this entire after credits on each of those if you just let it play. But I may be wrong about that.
And Hiroshi Duck Kamohara.
And Teru Yoshida. He goes by Yosh.
But at least that's a Japanese name, like Duck.
Yeah.
That guy's nickname was Duck.
Why is everybody calling him Doc? So, this is really, really long for credits, by the way.
Oh, are we
it's like 6 minutes.
Are we gonna sit for 6 minutes?
We are. We're gonna sit for 6 minutes. So, you and I have a tendency to finish a commentary and talk for another 6 minutes.
I guess that's true.
But, yeah, this is kind of weird. It does this...
Ooh, that's interesting.
What's that?
The History of the Matrix one is not written by the Wachowskis. It's just stored by them.
Okay. Weird, because they did write the comic, I'm pretty sure, that it's based on.
Interesting. I do know that comic they asked Grant Morrison to write some of the comic. Yeah, because they stole his...
Because they stole his... Yeah.
Yeah. But he's like, they know who I am. They asked me to write one of their comics.
That's different than that RoboCop situation where it's like you're like really inspired by Miller, but it's not like they went to a Miller story and just like stole the story.
Yeah.
Miller didn't write RoboCop.
Yeah.
So what I was gonna say is the credits here do
Junkie XL, he does a bunch of scores now.
Sorry. He does. This does a techno thing. And then just keeps throwing in a whole bunch of lines of dialogue from the thing you just watched, just like all over it randomly.
Yeah,
that's what this is.
It also says written and directed by Shinichi. I forget what that name was, but I recognize that name. I was like I saw that name, and I was like, I recognize that name. He does something.
And Keanu Reeves is Neo for the one line that he got paid $19,000 for.
Big Bang is one of the... This is a weird credits choice. Oh, they must have used a real high school. Or a couple of real high schools, because they just credited like special thanks to these high schools.
Interesting. Maybe some of that with the kid's story was like fully rotoscoped. And now that I'm saying that, I think I read that somewhere at one point, but maybe I'm wrong.
And the credits list the kid's story before Program, which was the second story we saw.
So maybe they...
Is this completely re-altered?
Well, not completely. Well, maybe. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at what the original order was. I mean, we got 6 minutes, so...
Yeah. Maybe Wikipedia lists a explanation.
So, Second Renaissance is second, just like I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Kid's Story, and then Program. And then World Record. And then Beyond. And Detective Story is before Matriculated. I think that's all right.
But I could have sworn when we just watched the Kid's Story, I could have swore Program was immediately after...
No, it was we saw Program after Second Renaissance. Because remember, you're right. Because remember, I read Program on screen, kind of wondering if Osiris is going to come up. And I was like, no, it's Program. Yeah, so they moved that around too for some reason.
But why?
I don't know. But I think it was World Record after those two.
I think so.
Yeah. Strange choice. I don't know why they did that. And again, let me apologize to anybody that wanted to watch this with us and doesn't
how could
have
we
HBO
have known?
Max. We could have stopped it and gone to the DVD, but that was a calculated risk on my part. I figured more people would be able to access it this way. Because I don't know how many people own this movie still.
Yeah. Well, if my...
I mean, you could also make the argument that people that care about this are likely to own it.
Well, if my previous... Yeah, but I think there's a lot of people that watched this back in the day that might just pop this on where they're like, oh, they're talking about the Animatrix. I remember that.
Sure. I just can't tell how well HBO Max is doing and how many people are actually getting this service.
I never got the impression that this was something people went back to a lot. Anyone I ever talked to was like, I remember watching that.
That was neat that one time I watched it.
He's also somebody...
Watanabe?
Yeah. Well, Watanabe is actually a very common last name, but...
No, I know, but just that guy.
Shinshinaro Watanabe.
I didn't see his first name.
He's also somebody. Some of these names I recognize, but I don't know why. I just know...
Sure.
That's an anime director. I have heard of them.
I cannot figure out the important things they made that quickly. Oh, something else I was going to say earlier is, did you know that, and only like 5 people probably saw it, so I don't know if you will know this, but did you know that Final Flight of the Osiris was actually shown in theaters with another movie?
Maybe, but if I did, I have forgotten it.
Okay.
You know what? No, I did know that because my friend John, you met John.
I did.
His dad went to whatever that movie is and saw it and came back and told us about it before the DVD came out.
Do you know the movie?
I do not.
It was a giant bomb that nobody saw and that was universally hated by critics. It was Stephen King's Dreamcatcher.
Oh.
That's what was put in front of that.
Interesting.
Right? I honestly forgot they even made a movie of that.
I didn't because I almost forget that the novel exists. I know that cover really well,
Yeah.
and it ran on. There was a summer where I met my dad.
Well, I know that book cover really
where
well.
that's
but...
on, that's just on HBO on loop, and
Oh,
I never
weird.
watch it, but it's just always on.
Okay, yeah, because the cover of that movie I had never even seen before.
No, and it should have been a bomb because it's terrible, and so is the novel.
Is it? I started the novel at one point, and there was I was listening to it on an audiobook, and I heard an hour of description of flatulence, and I was like, I'm done.
That's because that's the tell
And
you've been taken over by an alien.
I don't even... Okay, because I don't even completely know the premise of that, because I couldn't get past the
It is
first hour.
alien invasions, and the tell is flatulence.
Well, at least it was important somehow. Because I thought he was really fixated on that for some reason.
He is in a lot of his writing, and I don't know why.
Well, yeah, that's a weird self-indulgent thing, and you gotta wonder why somebody's that
It's
self-indulgent
also why
about
you
that.
should never read the complete and uncut version of The Stand. You want the incomplete and cut version of The Stand. He adds a bunch of that stuff into that novel. It does not.
You want
need to
the
be there.
abridged The Stand?
You do. It is the only novel they cut 300 pages out of it. And
Wow.
Stephen King needs 300 pages because of everything he's ever written.
Yeah.
And it's the one book where they did it. And then in the early 90s, he special editioned it. You can only get if you find a new copy of The Stand, it is the complete and uncut, and that's not. And I see people online. They're like, I started reading The Stand because it goes from I think 700 or 800 pages to a 1,200 page book.
Good Lord.
And I see people being like, it's just taking forever. I'm like, you're reading the wrong version. When people tell you they love The Stand, they read it when it came out, and they read it pre-1991.
I was going to say, and they're no older than 50 years old.
He also half updates the references. So he updates some of it, but not all of it. So it's more contemporary than that. I would never read the complete and uncut version of The Stand. Read the original novel of The Stand. Anyways.
Well, thanks a lot for listening, folks. Yeah, I was trying to think if I could come up with a way to intentionally stretch this to another 6 minutes, but I'm not going to do that. Well, thanks a lot for listening, folks, and Eric and I will be back with you at some point to do The Matrix Reloaded. Eric and I have had a hard time getting together lately, as I have mentioned to you guys before, but we're going to do some stuff when we can, so...
Yeah, things just keep coming up.
Yeah, but thanks for being here, man.
Yeah.
And I had a good time doing this, and I thought of a couple things to say, so that was good. And I can't wait for Reloaded, because I got a weird love-hate relationship with that movie, man. It's not good, but I really enjoy watching it. I still put that on in the background, once a year. I don't always sit and watch it, but I just turn it on.
I just think it's so long.
It is.
It's so long.
It's maybe the last year of my life that I have the kind of, childhood nostalgia thing that I do for certain things.
Mm-hmm.
Where, it was just a formative year, and I loved that movie when it came out, and,
I never loved it, but I also didn't know it was bad. I watched it a bunch when I was younger. But I hated the third one from
So did I.
I never owned it, and I saw it in theaters, I've actually, to this day, never rewatched the third one, I don't think. I think I saw it in theaters, and that was it.
Reloaded's kind of a special movie for me and my wife. She hadn't seen The Matrix, and then when Revolutions was coming out, I showed her the first two. She watched Reloaded and Revolutions for the first time both on the same day.
That's a long day.
Yeah, that's a long day. But like I was working in a movie theater when Reloaded came out, and so that made it more exciting for some reason. And I saw it a whole bunch of times, in the theater. And anyway, so that was a special movie for me. So I'm very excited to tear it apart with you. And even though I enjoy it, there will be a whole lot of ripping and shredding, I am sure.
You can enjoy things that aren't good.
Yeah,
I constantly am on about
is what I'm going to do. Yeah,
you can like bad things. Yeah. It's okay,
and I like that movie. It's not good, but I do.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with saying that you like something that's not good.
It's just,
as long as you acknowledge that it's not good.
I love the architect so much. It's insane, and the Keymaker is fun.
I created the myth.
Well, that'll be fun. I hope we can do it soon. Anyway, thanks a lot for listening, folks, and we'll see you again next time. I was Captain Logan.
And I'm Eric.
Later, folks.